I invest in the people around me. I hire good teams. I tell people I've had so many good people move on and leave me. Two of my former employees are judges now. Like, hire good people, support them with all you can, let them lead, let them have voice, and then watch them move forward, right? So to me, it's those people and that surrounding of a team of strong people. And I'm not here to micromanage you. I suck at micromanaging, but I'm here to kind of figure out, how do we do this together? How do you get stronger? How do we, that's what I think about, is kind of that human legacy of good people. There's always going to be problems, right? We're never going to have no problems. What we need are thoughtful, connected, loving people who will be tending and building and planting trees of their own, right?
Welcome back to another episode here on the Hart Hustle Podcast. Our next host went from being in the courtroom and sending people maybe away for some time. Now he's actually with them in the community. That's a shift that most leaders actually probably never make. But Shaun did. Why? Let's get into it. Shaun, most folks would have stayed on the bench, safe and respected. What moment told you, no, I'm meant to get closer to the people, not further?
Yeah, you're totally right. When I announced I was retiring, people were like, "Are you crazy?" Like, no. But it was a story that I shared with you previously about, I saw a gentleman speak 20 years ago named Don Coyas, and he tells the story of three sisters who come to the water, and in the water, babies are drowning. And the first sister jumps in and starts pulling kids out and is making progress, right? Saving lives. And the second sister thinks, oh, if I could teach kids to swim, they could help too, right? So she jumps in and helps. Okay, so then you got helpers, and but they're still overwhelmed, and they look up at the third sister and say, get in. And she turned and ran away. And you know this story. She was running upstream to figure out who was putting babies in the water and how could we stop that. That was how I viewed the courtroom, right? You know, you were always dealing with stuff coming at you and doing your level best. And then we established drug courts and kind of national academy courts. So we're teaching people how to do justice better for humans. But I always wanted to take a shot at making the whole place better for little boys and girls to come up in, right? And then I found it's a community foundation, and that's what we do, you know. So it's been a cool transition.
This was a little bit after COVID, if I remember correctly.
Yep. I did a year in COVID as a judge, and then switched over with Delta and Omicron and all the different variants. Yeah, so it was a big jump.
Do you think that was a shift as well, or was your mindset already kind of in the space of, I want to do something different, I really want to be in the community?
So I loved being a judge, and I was super connected with community, and like I'd walk down the street and people are hugging me, and you know, it's just, that's who I was, right?
Yeah.
COVID took everything of that away. I'm on Zoom all day long, and I'm like, I can't connect, right? So it accelerated it. It didn't make it happen, but it sure accelerated it. I was sure ready to do something that was more than Zoom judge, you know.
Shaun, so being in the courtroom, I'm pretty sure you've seen addiction, you've seen some poverty, trauma up close.
Yep.
What's something that you learned in the courtroom that most people work in the community actually probably would never even see?
Oh, gosh, we could talk about that the whole time, man. I think what we did best was we helped people find their life back, right? People would come in with all kind of, and we always think, oh, it's all about choices. You wanted to be the American kind of down on you thing. When you actually look at the research and what happens in people's lives, a lot of it is the environment and the cards they're dealt, and illness or homelessness, or, you know, all the things. And if we could help wrap around and bring supports and healing, people would get their lives back. It was so cool. And as a judge, you could kind of press people forward. You know, we had probation, we had testing, we had people going to treatment, we had people getting their driver's license, we had all the things we were kind of lining up for people. But there was this beautiful shift you would see with most folks where they weren't doing it anymore because the judge was telling them to. They started doing it because it was them, right? It's called adherence, where your recovery, your life, your trajectory is your own, not pressed on you from expectation from external. And that was always and you could see it. I mean, you could see people just saying, no, I'm going to do this, judge, because I want to do it, not because you tell me. I'm like, that's it. We're there. You don't need me, you know?
I love it. I mean, it seems like for you, it was always a shift in the mindset, right? Understanding that sometimes people need to see things a little differently, think a little differently, have a perspective a little differently, which is always why you give these great stories, right? Since the first time I met you, you were kind of sharing them. But I want to kind of talk about local investments that really that you've made, you know, that made you say, this is it. This is what legacy should look like. Could you tell us a little bit more about those investments that you made locally?
Yeah, absolutely. So I come in here 4.5 years ago, and we're doing all this great grant and scholarship work, right? Giving money out to nonprofits and students. And we take a couple of years to kind of try and make that stronger and better, right? Bigger grants, bigger scholarships. We're going to pay minimum 25% of your education, including room and board. Kind of making that stronger and easier to get to. But, you know, I mean, you've started a foundation, right? You put all this money on Wall Street, and then from Wall Street, you take the earnings, and that pays for the grants and scholarships, right? And I look at this, I get in here for a year or two, I'm like, we're doing awesome work. But what about that $95 that's sitting in Jeff Bezos's pockets, right? And I'm like, I don't think any of them care about my place or my people. I really don't. It's all shareholder, blah, blah, blah. So what we're doing, and we're not the first, but what we're trying to be part of kind of a leadership cohort is we're taking money from Wall Street and we're investing it in Main Street. So we're taking this money and we still need a return. We're going to continue to do the grants and scholarships, but we're investing in our neighbors, our community, bricks and mortar, childcare, wherever we can. And that's been such a cool idea. And as we talk about it, people are like, why ain't you been doing this that way all the time? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm here now. You know?
So what you said, right? People were saying, why didn't we do this sooner? But be real. Was there any pushback when you actually started moving the legacy dollars in these bold new ways that people probably weren't really accustomed to?
Oh, yeah. There are people who are just going to wave and smile at you and not do a thing, right? You know, and I'm trying to invite in other foundations, and it's nice to have me kind of be in the crash test dummy, but a lot of people are like, well, let's watch how that works, you know? So there's always, you know, it's changing hearts and minds, right? It takes time with people. You got to prove it. I'm going to prove it. I'm going to test it. I'm going to show if it works or not. That's what we did with courts, right? Like, I'm going to measure what we're doing. And if we're not helping people, we're not going to do it. If we're hurting people, we're stopping, right? So, yeah, there's always, you know, change comes hard for people.
Shaun, what do you think is like the biggest lie that people really believe when it comes to money, philanthropy, and community work? I mean, I can imagine now being in the space for some time that you're seeing all these things that people really just don't really know about, but they're making misconceptions.
Right. I think that goes to scarcity, right, man? That we need to pull out our pitchforks and our hammers and fight one another for the scraps. Whereas if we came together and we're interdependent and figuring it out together, we can do better and better and better, right? Back in the day, people invested in community and community thrive. Now we're all on Wall Street and in things, and you know, it's all just going away. Money is leaving our area and going out there. And I'm not totally against Wall Street. I'm not like an anarchist, but I'm like, we can do a lot here with what we got. So I think it's that we are better together. All thriving is mutual, right? If you're going to do well, I'm going to do well. It's not that I got to take from you for me to do well. That's the thing I see over and over again.
I'm really excited because Also, when we spoke, I realized that we had something in common, which is really nature and how nature plays such a big part. And at some point, we'll have to tell that story in the back with the tree and the rock. Listen,
Tree,
yeah, man, I told my wife the story and how, that's such a cool story, man. Something that I would kind of always remember. But I really want to talk about the way that you go into this is really being in nature, right? You bow hunt, you walk the shores of Lake Superior home. What does nature truly give you that leadership sometimes may take actually away? You mentioned about bike riding, right? You do it for a purpose. Talk to us about
it. Outside. Yeah. We have a lot of commonality there. I think people say, well, I'm going to go out in nature. As I've aged, I've reframed that to understand that I am nature, right? I'm part of, and the more I can, like, I'm waiting, I'm before you and I are coming on, I'm just looking out my window at the green spaces, and kind of stoking that in. Chief Seattle, have you bumped into his prayer to the four directions?
I haven't.
He says that man didn't create the web of life. He's but a strand in it. Everything man does to the web, he does to himself. And so I think as we care for nature and are in nature, and there's a million ways to do that, I think it feeds and nourishes us. And as we care for our places, it feeds and nourishes us and others. It's become a huge piece of who I am. Huge piece. I have two goals when I retire, man. One, be outside, and two, be helpful to people. That's it. I'm like going to be small right?
What's funny is that I just turned 35 about almost a month ago. Can't believe time is flying like this. But my wife is like, what do you want to do? It's 35. And I'm like, put me in the middle of nature, like in the middle of a jungle. I just want to feel at peace. And that's exactly what we did. We went and we found this trail near us. Cool. And man, did I feel at peace, right? Something new, the water, the trees, the birds, if you could only see the other side. I just had some people walk up, a Jehovah's Witness actually walking up, and not only they see the studio, but they're seeing all the plants, and they're looking at me like, wow, look at all these plants. And I'm like, if they only knew.
It's so awesome.
This is going to be to really what you said last time. You mentioned to me once that trees don't hurry, but they actually grow anyway, right? So right. I talking about that. I had this one tree. It was in a small pot. It was me. It was my fault for sure. But I didn't have big pots. So this thing has grown long and it's just kind of stagnant. And finally, I got some big pots. I planted it, and all the leaves on the bottom fell. So it's only these new 3-4 leaves on top. And they said you can chop it, you can do all these different things. But I was so happy yesterday, Shaun, because as I was seeing the leaves in the bottom were starting to grow back. They were so small for so many. I didn't know they were going to grow back like that, right? But it talks to us. Trees don't hurry, but they grow anyway. When did you realize you needed that kind of face, man?
Oh my gosh, 20 years ago. Have you read The Overstory? Have you ever read that?
I'll be very honest. I'd hate to read as much as I love to speak.
How about audio?
I would watch it.
Maybe audio or...
I haven't. I have to listen to it.
It's a great book about trees and kind of the environment, but there's a quote in there that says, when's the best day to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the second best day to plant a tree? Today. And I think about that a lot, right? I think about that a lot in terms of my life and how I'm going to plant some trees now. I probably should have planted a few more 20 ago, but what can we plant now that you and I may not see? Maybe your daughter is seeing those trees in the future, right? Having a long view of the horizon. Yeah.
This kind of goes back to you're planting seeds that make 20, 30 years to grow. How do you actually lead when you may never even see the fruit? You talk about, right, you planted these seeds, but how do you continue to lead even though you don't see it?
Right. I invest in the people around me. I hire good teams. I tell people I've had so many good people move on and leave me. Two of my former employees are judges now. Like, hire good people, support them with all you can, let them lead, let them have voice, and then watch them move forward, right? So to me, it's those people and that surrounding of a team of strong people. And I'm not here to micromanage it. I suck at micromanaging, but I'm here to kind of figure out, how do we do this together? How do you get stronger? How do we, that's what I think about, is kind of that human legacy of good people. There's always going to be problems, right? We're never going to have no problems. What we need are thoughtful, connected, loving people who will be tending and building and planting trees of their own, right?
So I asked you before I tell you what I'm going to tell you, what is so important to get to this space where you find peace in nature, and where nature really also allows you to think differently as a leader in the space that you're in? What had to change first? What was that first thing that you really had to take care of to get to this place in your life?
I had to stop taking myself so seriously. I had to start chopping down that ego, right? Bruce Lee says, cut, 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 get to that which is essential. And I had to learn that I remember I was sitting up that hill, you can't see it, one day in May of 2020 thinking, what is wrong with you? Why do you just go, 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 go?
Yeah.
I had to, that's my answer.
And also, and correct me if I'm wrong here, it's a mindset shift.
Yeah, reframe.
Right? You have to. So what I've done, Shaun, recently, because I've had to find that in myself as well, and that was from another leader that told me he's seen me build brands since I was very young, 19, 20 years old. And he said, now I'm 35. So he says, Ephraim, man, I've seen you build for so many years, and people teach best what they actually need the most. When do you actually start to realize your worth? You tell everybody to go know their worth. When do you realize yours? And that was like a holy shit moment for me, right? Like,
that's awesome.
You're right,
Right.
And from that point on, I really started having a lot of these conversations with leaders, right? Yeah. But as I'm speaking to leaders, I also see, Shaun, and I can imagine attest to this, is that not every leader has the mindset. Right. There's still some people, as you mentioned, that takes themselves too seriously. So I say all that because you'll love this. I created a 30-day mindset reset journal. And it's because I realized some of these CEOs, they like to show up as CEOs, but forget who they actually are. Right. And a lot of times you didn't make that role. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, you are a human that got placed into this role, and that's what you've been doing for 10 years. But ideally, look what you did, Shaun. You kind of pivoted when your mindset shift and you seen things a little differently. Like, I could be in the courtroom and sending these people off for 10, 20, 30 years, or I could be the beginning stages and saving them their lives 10, 20, 30 years. What you'll really love about it is that I incorporated plants. I had to make sure that when they read this journal, that everything that I felt and Shaun at this point is feeling, right? That nature, I want them to see plants. I want them to see, I have like a coach's nugget in there, but I called it rooted seed, because it's a seed that we're planting. And there's so much planting when they're telling themselves, the conversation that they have with themselves, the prompts that they have to read to themselves. It was really an experience, but I thought you would enjoy, man, that I put the mindset in there. I put in that reset and nature more than anything, because I realized how helpful it truly has been. 50 plants, man. I realized, maybe after the 5th and 6th one that I should have stopped, but I realized how it was helpful.
I think you're spot on. I think how we frame things makes such a difference, right? A different word for mindset, but reframing. I hurt myself Saturday. We were climbing through the woods. I fell and I actually got impaled by a tree on my shin. Went right through my waders and all that.
Holy crap.
And I was like, oh, dang me. And then I reframed and I thought, I've got my health. I was able to be out there. We are deep in the woods. And so I was able to kind of reframe even around an injury to think, I'm grateful, right? I'm reminded that what it's like to be able to walk on your left leg better. I have another tree story for you that I gotta tell you. I use this doing keynotes. I found it somewhere a long time ago. Do you remember the biosphere experiment? It was probably when you, right? Yep. They came in and, right, way back. There was one thing that wouldn't grow in the biosphere. Do you know what it was?
No, I don't remember. What is it?
It was trees. And the reason the trees couldn't grow was there's no wind. And because wind makes them strong, right? And to be resilient, you have to be strong and flexible, right?
Mm-hmm. I love
I think, and as a dad, you want to protect your kid from all the wind, right? you are not touching my kid. But wind makes us grow, right? Challenge is how we get that strength. And I think about that a lot, right? How do
100%.
you work through life, or the people under your care? How do you let them have enough wind to grow stronger, not too much wind so they break, right? Right. And that was Marlon's tree story, was all about that balance of strength and flexibility and nourishing. Yeah.
It's so funny because I walk around my house. I have this ficus tree that I just start shaking because you're supposed to do that, right? It gives it just. So when you say that, it just automatically like, I actually got to shake this tree. While people may think it looks crazy, right? I'm helping the tree grow. Okay.
Right. It can't grow. That's why you don't see huge trees inside your house, right? It'll always be a little plant because it can't get strong enough to be a big plant. Yeah.
That's so funny. How can leaders today, Shaun, actually slow down without really falling behind? Because that's what you mentioned, right? You had to kind of slow down and see things a little differently. And we talked about the mindset reset was because people are going 100 miles per hour and just have to slow down and see things from a different perspective. So what are your thoughts, man? How can leaders do this?
So for me, it was adopting, I always say I'm kind of Zen adjacent, right? I kind of pick practices. So it was a meditative practice. I shoot my bow, and I shoot the bow is it's an old wooden bow. It's nothing fancy, but you got to do it slow. You got to listen to you got to listen to it. So what I find is I try to intentionally build time in my days and weeks to just pause, right? And like I put hold spots on my calendar just to be open. Fridays, we've got a rule around here, no meetings. No outside meetings, right? That is a day where you can retool, you can kind of work on bigger stuff you couldn't get to, but don't be going out and doing meetings just have a place built in. And I think you got to do that on the regular, right? Mm-hmm. I love vacations, but they don't build that renewal practice that that you need on the regular, right? You can't, I'm going to go to Jamaica and that'll make me a better dad. No. You got to be practicing that on the daily, right?
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the podcast, we first want to say thank you. And we also just want to give you a little insight of what we're up to at Francis. Some don't even realize that we're working with organizations to help them use AI to create that real human communication experiences, whether that's actually supporting your families, those patients, or the entire community. We're actually creating tech that connects. Check it out, francis.ai. Listen, vacations are never good because I have a wife that likes to, to the T, have an itinerary. And that means you're waking your ass up super early. And me, I'm thinking vacation. I get to sleep in or sitting right by the beach. My wife said, no, that means we got to get to the beach even earlier. I'm like, so yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying, man. You got to take it that time. I love that you
we are early outs, but we usually have like one thing-ish each day we're going to do, and that's all we schedule, right? And then we'll flex and bend and do the other things, probably get a nap. You're probably not old enough.
No. Especially now with kids, naps. I don't know what the hell a nap is. I wouldn't tell you, man.
10 years easy, man.
Oh, my little one's still sleeping in the bed. It's horrible. I don't even know what it's sleep in your own bed feels like. But no, it is true. I also have done that. For me, it's Monday and Fridays. I make those usually my shorter days, and I won't take another, I won't do a podcast past 3 o'clock, or I won't do a conversation with my client even past 3. Because a lot of times it allows us to kind of, maybe we fell back on some admin work, right? The worst thing ever. So we got to kind of get back into those spaces, or maybe you forgot to respond to some emails, or personal life, man. I think sometimes we get so deep into doing for others, right? Making sure we're filling everybody's cup. But at some point you start to realize, for the first time, I'll tell you, Shaun, this past Monday, I wasn't feeling well. I had this itch in my throat, and I realized my family, I was like the last person to get it because the family already had it. Yeah. And I really wasn't feeling well, and I was supposed to stream that night. And I said, you know what? I'm not streaming. Like you have to make that decision. And even though I always talk about consistency and showing up, at some point I had to realize, like, I know people were expecting me to show up. Yeah. But what happens when I'm down and out? Who the hell is there for me to pick me back up? Who's pouring into me? So I told my wife, I said, hey, I just let you know I'm not working out today, and I'm not going live. And she's like, really? I said, I have to. I'm 35 now, okay? It's not the same. I don't rebound as good, John. I don't rebound as good.
I'm 60, man. Tell me about it. But I love that, right? Because our culture says don't rest. You got to produce. You got to do. And you need to be able to push back on that and say, I need to rest, right? And that, man, I wish I'd have been thinking that way when I was 35.
Man,
that
John,
was hard.
I'll tell you why I had to think this way. There was times, younger age, where I was working for corporate, and I was a person that never called out. And I would go to work sometimes with no voice, damn near dying, right? And show up and realize that they didn't care.
No.
Right. Even though I showed up and I made them so much, they didn't care. So I'm in a space, man. And I was telling this to a friend, you have to start worrying about yourself a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it is okay. I think when people say you're so selfish, they see it as a wrong thing. But to me, it's like, no, you have to be selfish a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if not, who the hell is going to take care of you? I mean, luckily I got an amazing wife, but we have to be able to do that for ourselves as well. So I love that we're kind of getting into the space of how can leaders think a little differently and take moments for themselves, especially when you're so into the community at that level, when we're helping, those that have trauma and we're taking in these stories. That was another big thing is, you carry them. How are you kind of getting rid of it so you're not taking it home? You mentioned a bike ride. For me, I'm just watering my plants, or maybe I'm going to the gym, that's right? But we got to find that thing.
I tell my people all the time, work is never going to love you back. I love you. We have a super close connected team, but I'm like, work will never love you back. It never will. And I think we're under this illusion that if we give enough, it'll love. No, it's work. It's meaningful, it's good, but it shouldn't take up all of your psychic energy, right? That was what we talked before record. I mean, that's why I started riding the bike. I needed some space to by the time I got back home, to be dad and not judge, right? I needed some space. It was consuming all of me. It had become my identity,
I love it.
Yeah.
Shaun, we're going to get back into just some of these conversations, but I know that a lot of leaders are thinking and want to know what other people's thoughts are when it comes to AI, the AI world. I don't even, right? This is how I look at it. Now that I speak to people, right? That spectrum looks, there's a middle, there's a beginning and an end. And really the beginning is that you're completely you're in fear. You don't want to use ChatGPT. Even you think that AI is taking over the world, but AI is already on your phone and has been for a very long time for those that are listening. Then you have that middle that are very curious and they're kind of dipping their toe and trying to figure out how that actually, works and could work for them. But then you have people that are really kind of ahead of the needle, right? And realizing that I'm not replacing a body, but I'm really making these bodies work a little bit easier, right? Per se, a little faster, because now in a drop of a dime that we can actually be able to do what took us months. What are your thoughts when you come to AI? Where do you fall within that spectrum?
I'm totally with you. I have this sneaking suspicion that AI is going to end the world, right? They're going to look around and say humans are the problem. We're going to be done with it. But I've dipped my toes in and I'm using ChatGPT and it's fabulous in terms of being able to, like yesterday, I got a letter from the county attorney's office about a thing, and I don't think they're right. I think their legal analysis is wrong. It kind of happens when you've been a judge. And so I throw all the documents into ChatGPT and I say, I want an independent analysis of what's happening here. And I go back and forth. I write a letter. I write a memo to the board, drafty stuff. I'll rewrite it all. But it's a powerful tool. I'm in awe. I'm just in awe. But I'm really of two minds on it, right? I mean, I don't do Facebook. I'm really trying to protect that space, right? Yeah. So I'm totally of two minds. But I think it's foolish to close our eyes and huddle 100%. From it. It's 100%. Just
To what you said, so ChatGPT, I wish I would actually jumped on it earlier. I had a friend that told me about this maybe 2-3 years ago. And just like everybody, it was a new thing. It was, it's like, well, whatever, right? It wasn't making as much noise as it is today. So I would say within the last year and a half, man, I use it every single day. And give you 2 examples to what you mentioned. I am no lawyer and I'm not an accountant, but I got myself out of 2 situations, one with a lawyer. Well, not so much with a lawyer, but just like you, right? I don't have the background, but I know when stupid is stupid, right? And it makes no sense. And
Right.
I was in a contract with someone, and they were supposed to give me back $500 at this point, but they were mentioning like no, and they would they would go back to the contract. But I read the contract 10, 15 times, one before I signed it, and one when I realized that they were trying to play me. Right. So I'm putting all these screenshots in ChatGPT. Prompting is what it needs, right? So I'm prompting and I'm having these conversations.
Yeah.
Man, I went back and forth only 2 times, and even ChatGPT almost kind of got aggressive a little bit. Where I say, hey man, tone it down a little bit. That's a little aggressive. I'm not even that aggressive.
Like, tone it up. Tone it up. Boom.
I love it, man. So I ended up getting $500 back, right?
Yeah.
Then my accountant, we had lost the 501c3 status for the organization. So I was trying to get the 501c3 reinstated.
Yeah.
They quoted me $5,000 to actually start. And I'm like, okay, cool. It seems like a lot of money, but whatever. I'm going to pay you $5,000, right?
Yeah.
So then by the end of it, now it's almost $8,000. And I'm like, wait a minute, right? So I'm going through everything they're sending me, and I'm already seeing the discrepancy in some of the wording and some of the titles that's here. So I'm going back and forth. I got it to $5,000. They even try to say, hey, how about we do $3,000 in marketing and then $5,000,
Right.
And I'm like, I mean, my math's still mathing. It still equals 8,000, right? Like, I'm not doing it. So ChatGPT, man, got me out of it, in those situations where I would feed it like, hey, look at this. Like, is this a thing? If we had to take this to the next level, where do I have a case here? And yeah, man, ChatGPT really does help people if though you know how to use it. And that's why I say,
and I could look at the analysis and I'm like, yep. So that, we're looking in. I'm exploring getting a AI training for our whole crew to think about. I think people kind of use it one-off-ish. That's kind of how I'm doing it. I got this thing, but I'd like to use it and analyze how could we work better and smarter and less. How could we use AI to build some of that space in for everybody? So we're doing a better job and we're taking better care of our team. I don't know if that's there, but it seems like that's a viable path, right?
I actually got another question when you talk about AI, Shaun. The framework that I sent you, or for my assistant that I sent you, it was great, right?
Oh, it's fantastic.
It was the AI note taker, right?
Yeah,
we took the transcript.
It's incredible. Yeah.
And we told it to create the framework based off the conversation, but we also plugged in a framework like this is what it should look like, X, Y, Z. Yeah. So yeah, it takes work, but now it becomes easier. I don't have to do that all the time. I can just plug and play. Plug and play, right?
We run, gosh, I couldn't even count the number of committee meetings we have a year deciding on grants, scholarship, et cetera. Mm-hmm. We've always had one person who's taken notes and a big amount of work. Now we use an AI tool with our Zoom. Yeah. When it comes out, it's 80-90% solid. And that's saving 80-90% of that person's time that she used to devote to that. So yeah.
But it takes time, because I had to tell my secretary that. I said, hey, when we're doing these Zooms, like we could either be using Phantom AI, like Outer.ai or whatever. And at first she was like, oh, well, I don't know. And then we used it and she realized, oh, I don't really have to take notes unless we're really in person. And then we can turn on a computer. Yeah. But yeah, man, it's very helpful. I would say, how big is your organization? You talk about training. And I think that is a big part, is that you're in an organization sometimes where people are scared and people don't have insight on what it is. But if we could just educate them, education is everything, that they can actually see things a little differently, right? Shift that mindset. So how big is this organization that you guys are working with?
Yep. So there's 12 of us on our team. So, and most of us are here. We've got a couple who are remote, but we have really good interaction. We do quarterly kind of mini retreats. We do every year. We'll do a maybe day and a half retreat. Lots of good kind of connectivity. We also do, there's a thing called CliftonStrengths, which is Gallup poll. It's like tells you your strengths, and we have a coach and we all do that. And that's been a neat tool because it allows you to lean into kind of your strengths and then be able to understand, oh, that's, Paige is running from, that's her responsibility showing up. Okay, I gotta meet that. It's been a good tool, not just about the tasks, but about how we work together and how we show up.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. I want to get into the story, man, before we start to, get wrapping here, because I know we could do this all day.
I know we could.
I want people to know about this rock story.
Oh, yeah.
You sent it to man, and years later he returned with a carved rock.
Yeah.
What did that moment actually mean to you? Tell us a little bit of that story, but also what did that really mean to you?
Yeah, so he was in our DWI court, so it's a treatment court, it's a wraparound court. I got guys for 5 years. We're incredible success, right? And one day, and he was a tough guy. He was a meth guy. His teeth were gone. He was a tough man. And he walked in one day and he had a poem about a tree and talking about nourishment and connection and strength and all that. Like, that's awesome. And then he graduated and left and went on to live his life, right? And he came walking in one Friday with this big tree. He had carved it. You want to see it? I got to show it.
Bring it up. Yeah, bring it up.
So like it's a piece of stone from Lake Superior, right? And that's wire. That's angle iron wire. And he comes walking into the courtroom. This thing weighs 20 pounds, man. And he's like, remember that poem? I'm like, of course I do, Marv. What are you talking about? He said, well, I just made that. That's that poem. And I'm like, and it was so beautiful, right? Because it was so outside of his comfort zone to write a poem. And then to come to find out that he's making stone and iron art. And
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, you see people getting their life back, right? It's just, I mean, that's a gift, to be even just a small part or even just a witness to that and watch people. I haven't showed you this one. My Paige, my finance director, her mom does the same stuff.
Oh man, that is cool.
Yeah, and that's me. That's the tree that's getting blown by the wind, but you're hanging onto the rock anyway because you're just too stubborn.
That's so good. Listen, I might have a new problem. I'm gonna go find these rocks and trees on. They look so good.
This one's copper, man. This is.
I see. That's so good. She did a good job.
Yeah, I wouldn't even begin to start trying to figure out how to make that.
You have a collection now. People see the one, and now you got two. Next thing you know, it's like 50 of them. Like, I got 50 plants. You got 50 of these rocks.
Right? I don't have to water these.
True. They still look good. I love it.
Like I used to try and have fish. I can't keep them alive. I'm just terrible.
That is too funny. I can't. Fishes, they take some loving as well, man, some time and care. You're in a space, man, where you talk about legacy, and not so much in numbers, but in names and in faces and stories. And I love stories, Shaun, which is why we do what we do, because I believe those stories are so impactful, not just for us to kind of listen to them and see how people are living and it makes us think a little differently, but also that we can share our stories with someone else and inspire them that way, right? Like, this is what we do. We're sharing a story on who you used to be and who you are now and why you're here. There may be another lawyer that is actually in a space like, man, or judge that says, am I in the right place? Right. I'm not happy anymore. You know, like what the passion I used to have, I no longer have it. And I love that a leader like you have taken, you know, that you jump shipped, because we need leaders like yourself. But when you talk about it, why is that more powerful than a plaque or a donation total?
That's a really good question. My sense is that, you know, no matter kind of your faith perspective and your history perspective, it's very clear that we've been sitting around fires together for a long time and telling story, and that it was the oral storytellers. And I think story allows it to get into your heart, right? It's not just your head and you're not just listening to facts, but there's a way that it touches your heart. And when we're both heart and head, I think then we can lean forward and engage, right? The power of story and picture and art is so profound. And I know, you know, you and I connect really well. And I know that you know, and I know that telling our failures is important too, right? We came up in a culture of manhood that said, you're going to be tough, you're going to work hard, you're going to use anger to as your fuel. And I think a lot of that's got to just drop, and you got to tell the story of your vulnerability and your screw ups, and that's how you invite people in, right?
Yeah, 100%. I do agree, man. I love to share those stories.
Yeah.
I'm a weird one. You know, it's funny when people say you're weird. I'm like, I love it. I love it. I'm weird. But Jehovah's Witness just pulled up. I told you they pulled up to my garage earlier. And as I sit here and started talking to her, she mentioned about, she said, can I share a scripture? And the first thing she mentioned was fear, right? And because everyone in the world is living in fear.
Oh, yeah.
Because what's happening
Yeah.
with just within the world,
Yeah.
within our country per se. And then goes into a scripture mentioning how evil, and if we clear all evil, we all live at peace. And I had to then go into the story of being sexually abused, adopted, understanding that I seen what evil looks like, right? But I am at peace with those parts of my life, and also knowing that I'm making a difference, that we're breaking cycles and we're not doing the same thing. Right? I didn't have to tell that story, but I wanted her to know, like, I understand that my story of evil, as you mentioned earlier, you could take it. There's people that I have family members that are still living in those moments and haven't been able to surpass those moments because they feel somebody owes them something. For me, I take those moments in my life, those failures, man, and I learned this maybe 20 something years old. I had a mentor and I was ready to close my cafe. I'm 22 years old. I wanted an angel investor. I didn't want to quit. Shaun, you're 20 something years old. Your friends are looking at you. You think, then I become a support. So, all these different things, man. And he says, why are you doing it? I said, I don't want to look like I failed, man. He said, he laughs. He said, Ephraim, this is not a failure. There's people twice your age that are asking themselves, what if? This is a lesson. You take this lesson, Ephraim, and you move forward and know that you'll never make that same mistake again. And if you make it, then you're the idiot, right? But I loved it because it was so true that sometimes we dwell on what failure may look like.
Right.
But I always ask, what did you take from that? When you leave a job, what did you take from that job? When you leave a relationship, what did you learn about yourself? Because it could be so easy to say, oh my God, I'm heartbroken. Okay, yeah, you are heartbroken. But think about, what did you learn from this moment? What do you take away that's going to better you in life? So what you said, Shaun, 100%. I do feel that, and it starts with social media, man. Social media gives you the glitz and the glitz and the glamour and all the good stuff. All those people that are successful, all you seeing is success, but they're not sharing the times they had to cry, the times they had to sleep on the floor, the times that they almost gave up, or probably gave up and got back up. Yeah. Right. Those stories are not shared enough, which is why I love that me and Keenan were able to talk about this, man. And I'm one to always, I don't care who it is, I don't mind sharing my story because I realize that when I share my story, how someone else would be more than willing to share theirs and be like, oh my God, I didn't know that there was someone else like me.
Right. You open a door, and I think, so there's a term, and you've heard of vicarious trauma, right? The idea that we are impacted. There's also the term vicarious resilience, right? I think we can be encouraged by seeing somebody else's resilience. We had a client named Bonnie. She was in her mid 50s and just hellacious background, right? But one of the things Bonnie did was she would do end of life work within her tribal community, and she would sit with folks and help them move into the next world. And people sometimes would say, oh, it's great that she can do that despite what happened to her. And I'm like, nope. Bonnie has taken what happened to her and turned it into ministry and spirit and love. Bonnie is Bonnie with all the bad things on board. And what you're seeing is her taking her reframing what's happened to her and moving it forward in love, right? And all the bad things that have happened to us, it makes us who we are right this damn minute, and then it's a question of, am I going to be a victim to that, or am I going to lean forward with that and present, do better?
Shaun, man, this is, I'm over here looking at the time and I'm like, we could definitely do another whole hour. This is how good it is. We'll start wrapping this up. I'm going to ask you this last question, then we'll get into that blind question. So have your blind question prepared for next year. Yeah. But finish this sentence. Real change starts when ...
Oh, man. When the student is ready. And there's a Buddhist saying, the teacher arises when the student is ready. And I think that's right. Real change starts when you're ready, right?
Love it. It's true, 100%.
Yeah, and you don't know you're ready, and then all of a sudden you look back and like, oh, I was ready, and that happened, right? Yeah. It's all about receptivity and yeah.
You know what? I think this is so good. I just realized that we're both standing up, right?
Yeah,
We
right.
both have, like, that's how you know the energy is very different in the room. We're both standing, we're moving. I love it, man. So this is the question.
I won't show you. I literally have a hole in my ankle from where I got stabbed on Saturday by a tree in the woods.
I know. That's why I was surprised you stood up this whole time, man. After you told me that story. Golly, trooper.
Idiot.
That's exactly. Hey, you know, I have to start talking to myself like that sometime when I do dumb things. Like, you're a dummy. Like,
right,
but it's so funny. It is the funniest thing.
Done that, man.
I'll tell you one really funny dumb story, really quick. So, I'm blind. Okay, so I should not be driving in the dark.
Okay,
I mean, I do, but I'm blind. I shouldn't. So what happens is sometimes when I'm the type of person, man, when I'm listening to something or I'm on the phone call, like I'm just driving. So I'm driving one day from work. It was in the middle of a hurricane where I thought I was heading home, and home was about an hour away. But then I started to see, I'm in Orlando, and then I started to see the Hard Rock Hotel, and Hard Rock Hotel was in Tampa. That's a whole city away. So I'm like, oh, like, how is my wife really going to believe me, right? My phone died, Shaun.
4 hours late. Whoa.
Yes, my phone died. My wife is one of those that anxiety started to kick in. It's 12 o'clock at night. She's like, where the hell is my husband?
Yeah.
She knew that I also had a drink. So, you know, she's calling my coworkers like, where the hell is he? All these different things.
Oh,
so,
man.
you know, then I got lost the other day when I went to Disney, and she's like, I don't know what the hell is wrong with you, but use your GPS. And I'm like, sometimes, man, I'm just living life, Shaun. I just love life so much. I'm just going with the flow sometimes.
You had me at, it was the middle of a hurricane. I'm like, what the hell? We don't do that up here. We don't have hurricanes.
My friend was laughing. She said, Ephraim tried to go find the hurricane himself, huh? And I'm like, this like that. But we'll get to the blind question, man. We got to wrap this up. So
let me tell you one more quote about the fear, circling back to the people. Oprah says, and I love this. She says, feel the feels, but take the wheel. Fear can ride in the car because fear is something, but don't let it drive. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's a framing for me that really, because I'm afraid, right, of this time and future. And I want to show up in the right way so that my grandkids think I did well. Right. So fear is present, but I'm going to drive. I'm not going to let fear drive the.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. I'm clipping that, by the way. We're definitely going to clip that moment. People need to hear that. People need to definitely hear that one. So let's get to the blind question, man. And I spruced it up a little bit based off what they said. But let's say that, we know you spent your whole life really helping people really rewrite their stories at all levels, from what you used to do to really what you're doing now. But if your life was actually a Netflix series, what should season 2 be called and why?
Oh, geez, man. You couldn't have sent that to me ahead of time.
Gotta put you in the hot seat, man. Gotta put you in the hot seat for sure.
Okay. Here. Season 2 should be called You Don't Matter That Much. Let it go. And don't. It was hard for me to stop being a judge. I'd built beautiful things. I was caring for a bunch of people. It's a very important kind of job. People stand up when you walk in. Everybody calls you judge. It was really, and you see judges who refuse to leave because I'm indispensable, right? Mm-hmm. And I left, and I look back, and they're still doing that stuff. There's good people doing that work. It wasn't all about Shaun. Mm-hmm. I don't matter that much. And letting go helps me to do better work and helps me to be more generous with my people and partners and family and friends, right? So that there's a book that talks about cosmic insignificance therapy. Look up at the stars and understand that I'm not that big a deal. The earth does not revolve around me.
That's so good. I'm having a good time. Believe me, it's a good time. What is your blind question, Shaun, to the next leader we have here on the Hart Hustle Podcast?
And you asked me this question. It's, what is one thing you would let go and one thing you would take up in order to be more present in your life? So I want to let go one thing and take up one thing.
Okay, I love it. Oh, you really put someone in the hot seat the next episode for sure.
Well,
They're gonna tell me the same thing. You should
time,
have sent me this. Shaun, where can people find more about you, the organization? What's your Instagram, if you have one, Facebook, website, all that good stuff?
I'm on LinkedIn, so they can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I tend to put some stuff. Our website is dsacommunityfoundation.com, although we're changing to Boreal Waters Community Foundation.
Breaking
after
news,
the
man.
21st. Don't let it out until after the 21st. BOREL, that's the Northern Forests and Waters. That's the northern environment. So it'll be Boreal Waters Community Foundation.
I love it. I love it. And was this a you thought process and how to bring it to the board? Or?
All of us, and the board, and we're looking like, what's our place? How do we define who we are and where we live? And we're in the Boreal Northern Forest. So yeah, but don't 21st. There's a big party.
I won't tell them, Shaun, before then, but I did want to tell them that every picture behind Shaun is a legit picture taken by you, right, Shaun?
Right. This is
like, come on.
This one is the view out our bedroom window onto Lake Superior. This one is a friend's place just down the road on Lake Superior, and this is where I bow hunt. I'm in the middle of the city, dude, right up above my house.
I bow hunt.
Yeah,
I love it. Well, guys, if you guys haven't already, man, make sure that you guys go ahead and connect with Shaun. I mean, the wisdom, the insight, it's definitely, you guys can see it through this whole episode. Make sure that you guys also follow the organization and the growth, the revamp that is actually happening. He just mentioned the new website. Make sure you guys check him out there. It's been a pleasure. I always enjoy speaking to leaders that are in this space.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much, Shaun. Make sure you guys do comment, share, like, all the good stuff, because that's how we get the stories out there. We talk about stories. We got to get the stories. All you got to do is share. It doesn't cost you anything. My name's Efrain here on the Hart Hustle Podcast. This has been Shaun. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Laters.
Peace.